and welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship station, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Both of our television stations are on Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99. We're also on the radio on 88.1 WBFH The Biff out of Bloomfield Hills and 89.3 Lakes FM here in West Bloomfield. Online, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on CivicCenterTV.com, as well as on Facebook, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. And we're also on My Michigan TV. My TV is Michigan's streaming network, a network of Michigan content from creators all across our great state here. And you can find all that online on mymitv.com, mymitv.com. You can also find that on the App Store on your mobile phone, whether it be the iOS App Store or the Android App Store, Google Play, as well as on your smart TV, your Roku TV, your Fire TV, your Apple TV, whatever it might be. You can find My Michigan Television right there and find content from all across the state of Michigan. You can also get that from us each and every day, Monday through Friday, live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, and throughout the week, throughout the afternoon for replays on Civic Center TV and on our website, CivicCenterTV.com. In addition, on our website, CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast, if you miss an episode, you can find all of our episodes and all of our interviews by clicking on the Megacast link, and then on that page, you'll be able to click to find full episodes and watch our entire shows back at your own convenience, or you can watch individual interviews. So if one interview is more interesting to you than the rest of them, or you're just looking for specific people that we've talked to over the last couple of weeks, so really throughout the entire run of this show, you can find that on CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast, as well as information about all of our partnering television, radio, and other media outlets. Then on CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, we have information about COVID-19 from direct sources that are at the forefront of battling this issue. They have updated resources there each and every day that are on the CDC's website, the state of Michigan's website, and Oakland County's website, as well as the direct coronavirus pages of many of our local municipalities. CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. Instead of digging through the weeds of the internet to find information that you need to know, you can find all of that on our website at CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, as well as our top stories each and every day. We grab articles from some of our friends over at many of our local newspapers and other journalistic outlets here in the Metro Detroit area and throughout the state of Michigan to bring you the latest news on COVID-19 and other top issues in the local area. And today, a coronavirus tracker from Bridge, Michigan. New cases hold steady amid a national spike in COVID-19. This, of course, from Bridge, Michigan. Michigan averaged nearly 1,200 COVID-19 cases over the weekend, staying relatively stable even as the percent of positive coronavirus tests has risen. The state reported 3,554 new COVID-19 cases and 19 COVID-19 deaths on Monday, covering Saturday, Sunday, and Monday's metrics. Although that pushed the 7-day daily average to just over 1,350 cases, the increase hasn't risen steeply as it has in Sunbelt states reeling from the more contagious Delta variant. Cases in Michigan are climbing now, averaging about 14 cases per 100,000 people per day. But that's a fraction of more than 70 cases per 100,000 people per day seen at the height of the spring surge, when some counties' rates exceeded 100 cases per 100,000 people each and every day. The latest data shows that over the past week, nearly 7.7% of tests have been positive, up from 7.1% a week ago. It was 6% on August 1st and below 2% from mid-June through mid-July. Hospitalizations rose slightly over the weekend, with 925 patients being treated for confirmed or suspected COVID cases, up from 908 on Friday. Michigan COVID-19 cases continue to rise as state officials on Friday reported over 3,000 cases over the past 2 days before that, for an average of 1,564 cases and a positive test rate of 7.9%. That's the highest positive rate since it was 8% back on May 11th of this year. Of Michigan's 83 counties, 22 have 10% or more of their tests coming back positive. In Iosco County, 21% of tests in the past in the past week have come back positive. And so continues to be a trend that's pretty steady here in the state of Michigan regarding COVID-19 cases, but still of concern as it's significantly higher than it was about a month ago and certainly 2 months ago. And we were starting to see more of a lull in the rise of cases and seeing them be relatively low, right around that 1% to 2% positive per 100,000 cases rate that we wanted to see. And earlier on in the pandemic, of course, it's been said numerous times from the Health and Human Service Department that 3 to 3.5% positive case rate is where you're seeing evidence of community spread. So if you're under 3.5%, you're not really seeing evidence of that. And right now we're hovering right around 8% in the high seventh percentile. So definitely still a cause for concern, although our situation here in the state of Michigan doesn't seem to be as severe at this moment in time than it is in other places. And of course, this article from Bridge, Michigan Magazine mentioned Sunbelt states as being more of a concerning area regarding COVID-19 cases. That being said, we still need to be careful. We still need to be mindful of other people when we're going out in public. And while you may be vaccinated, you can still pass COVID-19 on to other people that aren't vaccinated. And of course, with the Delta variant being out there, it's more contagious and more likely to provide increased symptoms than previous versions of this novel coronavirus. Other news making headlines, CivicCenterTV.com, in relation to that last story with increase in COVID-19 cases and concerns about lulls in vaccine rates. The Biden administration is expected to recommend COVID-19 booster shots for all Americans amid the rise in COVID cases. This from USA Today. The Biden administration health officials are expected to recommend booster shots for all Americans regardless of age 8 months after they receive the second shot of those 2-dose vaccines, those being the Pfizer BioNTech vaccines and the Moderna vaccines. A source familiar with the plans confirmed to USA Today. The news, which will all be announced as soon as this week, comes as the Delta variant rages across the country. It also comes amid anxieties about the Pfizer vaccine's waning immunity and the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA's, approval of booster vaccines for immunocompromised people. The official that broke this spoke to USA Today on condition of anonymity because the person was not authorized to speak publicly on this issue. Booster shots will begin as early as mid to late September once the FDA formally approves those vaccines. The action is expected for the Pfizer shot in the coming weeks. As long as any of the vaccines are issued under an emergency use authorization, no one but the FDA can recommend boosters. The change comes due to recent data released from Israel and the Mayo Clinic, among others, said Dr. Eric Tobel, Vice President for Research at Scripps Research in La Jolla, California, a national expert on the use of data in medical research. The data published by Israel's Ministry of Health shows that protection from the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine dropped off precipitously after 6 months, down to 40 to 50% effectiveness against infection, he said. The vaccine was still highly protective against serious illness and death, but not against milder forms of COVID-19. In a quote, he said, there's still risk for long-term COVID, and people can get quite ill from symptomatic infections. You can't gloss over that. Reports from Qatar and the Mayo Clinic are seeing the same issue, he also said, and continued in another quote, it gets down to 40 to 50% effectiveness rate, whereas it used to be 95%, end closed quote. Why the mRNA vaccines become less effective over time isn't known. Topol thinks it's likely due to the short dosing schedule that the United States chose. The 2-dose vaccine series was given 3 weeks apart for the Pfizer shots and 4 weeks apart for Moderna. The U.S. used the spacing that Pfizer and Moderna used in their trials because that was the data that was available. The short spacing might not have allowed the memory B and T cells in the body to develop as robustly as they would if the interval had been longer. In the quote from Eric Topol, again, the quote is, quote, "This might not have happened if the spacing had been 8 to 12 weeks. That's what Canada, the United Kingdom, and Scotland did," and closed quote. Adding booster shots raises thorny moral questions as the world continues to be ravaged by COVID-19, and few countries have access to enough vaccines for their people, let alone vaccine booster shots. Given that global inequity, having Americans get a third dose while so many have had none can come off as being problematic. Dr. William Moss, Executive Director of the International Vaccine Access Center at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, has proposed that the United States donate doses for every booster shot that is given. In a quote from Dr. Moss, he said, "I would love to see the Biden administration say we're going to donate 10 doses for every booster shot that we give." He continued on, "It's a visible way of showing we understand that there's an issue here, and this is how we're going to address it," and closed quote. So booster shots allegedly may be recommended from the Biden administration. Of course, this is currently a report from what seems to be a leak from the Biden administration to USA Today. There hasn't been any full confirmation directly from the Biden administration or announcement on this issue. Of course, it's been said earlier on in the month that booster shots will likely be recommended for those who have immunocompromised situations because of their increased risk from COVID-19. But with this report, it may be something that for those who got the Pfizer and Moderna shots, those 2-dose vaccines, that boosters may be suggested here in the near future. But that also I do like the point that they brought up in this, that Dr. Moss from Johns Hopkins University brought up on the moral issue of having third vaccines administered to people here in the U.S., where in other parts of the world, some people have not even gotten a single dose of the vaccine, and they're still dealing with the COVID-19 situation as it is right now, just as treacherous there as it is here without the vaccines as part of as one of those, for lack of better terms, silver bullets to help against the COVID-19 pandemic, and especially as vaccine demand here in the state of Michigan and across the U.S. has waned over the last few months. It would make sense to start helping other countries get along in their vaccine process while we try to bring other people here along as well, because while COVID-19 herd immunity may eventually be reached in the U.S. if we continue this push on the mainland and in all of our territories, that doesn't take out the issue in other countries where it can continue to mutate and new variants can continue to pop up. So a really nice article there from USA Today. On our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, you can find even more information about that. Closer to home, of course, people have been struggling throughout the pandemic financially for a number of different reasons. And as we go back to school, more of a focus has, of course, been brought on parenting and on the toll of COVID-19 financially on those that also have families to support. And so the child tax credit, of course, came into play in recent months. And for those of you that have questions about where your child tax credit is, if you haven't seen a payment, there's a great article from our friends over at the Detroit Free Press that gives you some details on how to track those payments. This, of course, as I said, from the Detroit Free Press. The second round of advanced child tax credit payments hit millions of bank accounts on Friday. But what should you do if you haven't got your money? Or what can you do if you've been waiting for more than a month and didn't get even the first payment for July? It's tricky because, well, so much happens on a wide range of quite specific individual factors. Many times there is no one-size-fits-all answer. Many people aren't sure where to turn, so here's a look at some of the options and things to know about the advanced child tax credit payments. How do you track a missing child tax credit? The IRS has a timeline for when you can even begin to track missing payments. If you've been waiting since July 15 for a payment, you might be able to put a trace on it now. You do have to wait a bit if you're anxious about an August payment, which just began rolling out by direct deposit on August 13th. For example, the IRS says you cannot trace money until you've waited 5 days since the deposit date and the bank says it hasn't received a payment, 4 weeks since the payment was mailed by check to a standard address, or 6 weeks since the payment was mailed and you have a forwarding address on file with the local post office or 9 weeks since the payment was mailed and you have a foreign address. To start a payment trace, mail or fax a completed 2-page Form 3911 taxpayer statement regarding refund. Is the IRS sending out some July payments now? Yes. So you might want to read up on this one before trying to track any missing money. And of course, we have the link to that article on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. The IRS is correcting an earlier problem that involved a specific group of families where the parent or parents have an individual taxpayer identification number and the qualifying children have a social security number. In a quote from the IRS, they said, quote, such families who did not receive a July payment are receiving a monthly payment in August, which also includes a portion of the July payment. They will receive the remainder of the July payment in late August. That from an IRS alert. Who is getting the child tax credit now? Many families don't need to do anything to get this money. The IRS is basing monthly payments on the most recently processed tax return, either the 2019 federal return or your 2020 federal return. The IRS said that the August payments reflect information on tax returns that had been processed by August 2nd, including people who don't typically file a return but during 2020 successfully registered for the economic impact payments using the IRS non-filers tool at irs.gov. Is the IRS mailing out a bigger batch of August payments? Yes. Roughly 4 million people or more who received direct deposits to their advanced child tax credit in July now will be stuck waiting a bit longer to receive the August payments by mail. Remember, you could have to wait until the end of August, or roughly 2 more weeks, to allow enough time for delivery by mail of payments being sent by paper check. The IRS and the U.S. Treasury did not detail the so-called glitch that created this issue in August, but the IRS said the issue is, quote, expected to be resolved by September payments. The IRS has a child tax credit update portal at irs.gov. You can visit irs.gov/child tax credit 2021 for details. You have until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on August 30th to make any possible changes if you want those changes to be reflected in the next payment, which will be issued on September 15. The advanced payments, which currently apply to this year only, were scheduled for July 15th, August 13th, September 15th, October 15th, November, and December 15th as well. You can find all that information and more answers and more details to those questions and other questions as well about the child tax credit from this great article, very detailed article from the Detroit Free Press that we have listed on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We're going to take a quick break and dive right into the show. After the break, we'll talk about U.S. Census data and why there may be some discrepancies and misrepresentations of some of our local municipalities because of the challenges that came along with collecting census data during the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll also speak to Small Business Association of Michigan President Brian Calley at the bottom of the first hour, and then in the second hour of the show, we'll have Gadulka and Kristina Pruccoli from the Sylvan Table restaurant in Sylvan Lake, Brian Peterson from Bees and the D, and Mike Sukent, the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association. That all coming up next on the Megacast. We'll return after this quick break.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211, how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in our studios here in West Bloomfield Township, Michigan, where we host the show each and every day here on Civic Center TV, Birmingham area municipal access on Lakes FM on 88.1 The Biff, as well as online, civiccentertv.com, and My Michigan Television, MyTV, MYMITV.com to learn more about all the content that they produce from throughout the state of Michigan and provide to you in a one-stop shop for everything from the Great Lakes state, as well as where you can get My on your phone and on your smart TV as well. Well, the U.S. Census data from 2020 has started to file out, and we're starting to be able to analyze all the data and the changes that we've undergone in our communities over the past 10 years. But some of those changes may not be entirely accurate for a number of different reasons. And one person that knows a lot about that and has some strong opinions on those discrepancies is the current mayor and the outgoing mayor of Pleasant Ridge, Kurt Metzger, with us on the Megacast. Kurt, thanks for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate having you on. In addition to your role with the city of Pleasant Ridge, you're also a demographer and a member of Detroit's Census-wide committee. And we've already seen some articles this week where Mayor Mike Duggan has mentioned that he believes the city of Detroit's population count, which according to the census data has significantly dropped. He believes that Detroit was misrepresented in the census data because of the circumstances of the pandemic. And do you have that same thought, having looked at some of the data that's been out so far? Do you believe that Mike Duggan, the mayor of the city of Detroit, is on point with that argument, or is this census data truly, as far as we can get it, accurate?
Well, there's I do believe, I'm starting to look a little bit more detail, and that's what's going to take to really drill down in the city to understand what changes occurred. The fact that Detroit lost 74,000 people was a little bit more than was anticipated. We expected a loss, so that was the first shock. When you look at the data, the only race and ethnic group to drop was the African American community, which actually fell by 93,000. Now, Detroit claims that they've got DTE records that show more occupied housing units than the census counted. We also know that Detroit had a lot of problems with the fact that the census was done online, and a lot of people are not connected in the city of Detroit. We also know that the pandemic basically eliminated all their outreach activities. that they had planned up until the very last minute. And then when the Trump administration decided to stop the census 2 weeks early, a lot of the follow-up, the Census Bureau sending enumerators out to knock on doors from which they had not received responses, that was eliminated at those last 2 weeks, which were very critical to get to the hardest to enumerate. So there is that. Those factors play a big role in making us think that there were a number of people missed. The other thing, but as I start looking, as you look outside the city of Detroit, growth in the African-American community in Oakland County, in Macomb County, and out Wayne County leads you to believe that a lot of African-Americans moved out of the city and moved into the surrounding suburbs. So we have to balance those two, and we'll be looking, hopefully I'll be part of a group that will be looking at more detailed, nuanced data to try to better understand what actually happened.
According to the U.S. Census data from 2020, that between 2010 and 2020's censuses, the African American population in Detroit dropped, but it's showing in this data that there's been some rapid growth of the black population in Wayne County, in places like Harper Woods, in Macomb County, and in places such as East Point, which are in surrounding areas of Detroit, which suggest otherwise. And then you mentioned Mayor Duggan's claim that that DTE has reported significantly more residential units that are being counted for their numbers on a regular basis than was counted in the U.S. Census. That differential is significant. The census claiming 254,000 occupied households, while DTE Energy reports 280,000 residential homes are currently paying electric bills. And part of this issue with these missing people, so to speak, they're not missing. We know that there are people there that always are going to slip through the cracks with the U.S. Census. It's the nature of the nature of the information gathering that some people are going to fall through the cracks, no matter how much effort is put into this. But in the situation in 2020, where you did have that reduction and that delay and that stop and start in those door-to-door interactions, some people do get missed because that is being done on a very local basis. In Wixom, where I live, despite me filling out the census over the phone, I had multiple people come to my door at my apartment looking for, because they had not had my address marked off of their papers yet. But that may not be the case in places like Detroit. So leading up to the end of the deadline, to the deadline of collecting data, was Detroit seeing a struggle to get those people on those front lines to go door to door, especially because of the situation of the pandemic at that point in time?
Yeah, you've done your homework quite well. Yes, I mean, obviously, the census will go, the harder to count areas, those areas that have the most vacancies, those areas that are seen as being a little bit iffy in terms of blight, and people feel a little bit hesitant to go out. That tends to be the neighborhoods where you have the highest non-response rate. But it's also depending on how the Census Bureau did their follow-up, which was delayed starting, and as I said, was ended 2 weeks early by the Trump administration. The assumption is that there were a number of housing units, particularly in those hard to count areas, and Detroit has more than certainly any place in Michigan and more than most of the major cities in the country. We know that they have the highest poverty. We knew that there were a lot of issues in terms of vacancies and problems finding people. That's the assumption is, therefore, the Census Bureau did not go to every place. It's possible, there's still some questions nationally. They're looking at issues around non-response on questions. There's some still discussions as to what happened in terms of pandemic, the various procedures that were planned and then postponed, and some were eliminated. And certainly the work done at the local level, getting the word out, doing the knocking, door knocking. Detroit had a tremendous outreach program planned that was kind of scuttled in most cases, and it became more of a online presence, more of a public relations and advertising. And so those kinds of issues all play into this. I don't know. I mean, in between 2000 and 2010, 185,000 African Americans left the city of Detroit. So we're now down to half of that. It's very possible that a great percentage of that number actually were counted, but they were counted in other communities. So again, we need to look a lot further, and we also have to realize that those DTE counts need to be as of April of 2000, because that's Census Day. And so we need to start looking at, the hookups by neighborhood instead of looking citywide. And so we'll be doing a lot more of that.
We're joined by Kurt Metzger. He is the outgoing mayor of Pleasant Ridge. He's also a demographer and a member of Detroit's Census-wide committee, joining us today on the Megacast. And as per reports from the U.S. Census, Detroit lost about 10.5% of its population, falling to a population of just 639,111 residents. Mayor Mike Duggan, of course, disputes that, as do many other people in the city and on that census committee. And Mike Duggan even claimed that he believes Detroit was undercounted, quote, by at least 10%, and closed quote. And these have major impacts on the city of Detroit. And just like missing census data or undercounted data can have significant impacts on your state or on other communities as well. Michigan, of course, lost a congressional seat because of its drop in population compared to other states in the union, and so that's going to have a significant impact. But in the city of Detroit, this can also have a significant impact on federal funding for roads, for infrastructure, for other major issues that clearly need to be addressed and could be impacted by this undercounting. So, Kurt, my question for you is, with this data having been what it is, it's been collected, that it is what it is from the 2020 census, but we have this information from DTE and from other resources about how much of an undercount this could be. What can be done at the community level and in the city, in the region, to potentially correct this undercounting or address this undercounting? Can that be petitioned to the U.S. Census Bureau for a change?
Well, it can be. I mean, it's not easy. The Census Bureau does not just automatically, if somebody says we were undercounted and based on these records, we have this many more people. It's not that easy. The Census Bureau requires a great deal of data and a great deal of information to challenge. They only accept certain kinds of information. And even at that, very seldom does the Census Bureau make major changes. And those changes will not occur for a period, even if Detroit gets in a very detailed challenge by the end of the year. That has to be studied. People are going to be looking at it. The 2020 numbers, even with a possible adjustment down the road, will still be the final numbers that will be people will see when they go to all their publications. Even if the numbers are adjusted, all the data that come out based on the 2020 census going forward will all still be predicated on that 639,111, even if there is a change. So yes, there's a challenge procedure and there may be some success in the end, but it's a very long road. It's a very difficult road. And I imagine there will be other communities across the country, not necessarily in Southeast Michigan. Haven't seen or heard complaints. When you look at Oakland County communities, you look at Macomb and Wayne, surprisingly, a lot of communities did quite well, and especially ethnic communities like Hamtramck and Dearborn Heights. The ethnic communities really came out and responded to the census. You see that in increasing numbers in Oakland County, but you see it throughout the region. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. It's going to require a lot of analysis and some really good, strong data to make the case.
We're joined by Kurt Metzger. He is the outgoing mayor of Pleasant Ridge, a demographer as well as a member of the Detroit Census-wide committee. And I'm just looking at the census website at census.gov and some of their specific program procedures for example, their count question resolution program and their requirements for appeals to census data. And there's there are tons of hoops to jump through. There's a lot of detail that goes into that, and especially where you have a situation where a major city like the city of Detroit won't be alone in believing it's undercounted, especially in given the year that we held this current census in 2020, and because of the challenges that were there. So Kurt, just a few more minutes with you, and I have said multiple times as I've reset and reintroduced you to those that may be tuning in process that you're the outgoing mayor of Pleasant Ridge. Why outgoing at this point?
Yeah, you keep making that point. I have been mayor now for 8 years. It's been a wonderful 8 years, but I'm getting up in age, and I just thought, after 8 years, I think you got to know when to, as Kenny Rogers said, you got to know when to fold them. And I've really enjoyed myself. I don't want to start having it become routine or lose that edge. And I think I have a commissioner who's been with me for the 8 years and I feel very strongly about. He's very interested in taking over the job. And so I thought, knowing full well that the mayor position would be well filled, I decided it was time to step down and put my support behind Brett Scott. So it's been great. We've accomplished a lot in terms of Pleasant Ridge. We even gained population between 2010 2020. So I feel total success, and I feel that I can step down knowing that the city is in good hands and will continue to be kind of a popular place for young families and others to live.
Well, as we prepare for you to leave your position as mayor of Pleasant Ridge, we want to look back at an issue that has continued to be an issue throughout our local area and really has inflated over the past couple of months, and that's the issue with these power outages and these severe storms. A couple of years ago, you were quoted in a Free Press article about DTE outages saying, at least in terms of Pleasant Ridge residents, quote, "Most of our residents didn't think trees were the issue for years and years. We have had not a love-hate relationship with DTE. It was just a hate relationship," and then chuckled. In terms of what can be done and what has been done since 2019 in these 2 years plus since that point in the issue, has DTE made any progress in Pleasant Ridge in your local area in terms of curbing some of these power outages? Has the issue stayed the same? And then on top of that, what can be done from a resident level, from a local government level to address that issue, as we've seen more and more severe weather this summer than we have in the past?
Right, and we'll continue to, no doubt. Yeah. And DTE has admitted that they are behind in two areas: tree trimming and infrastructure improvements. And DTE did come out. We did actually have an open house where DTE brought all their staff and had tables and maps and everything else. So they've been very accommodating in terms of coming and meeting with Pleasant Ridge residents. Obviously, there was, I think people kind of forget, and then this summer has just been really difficult. We've had a lot of tree trimming in Pleasant Ridge. We celebrate our tree canopy, but we have so many large trees. We actually had one fall down in our huge limb fall in our backyard and crush our screen house. And luckily it didn't hit the power, but it did hit internet. So we just got our internet back. But half the city was out again. On the east side of Pleasant Ridge where we live, the southern part of that was luckily part of an infrastructure improvement in Ferndale, which kept our lights on this time around. But the area just north of us, which is on a Royal Oak grid, transformers went out, and they were out until last night. The west side, there have been a couple areas of the west side that have been out 4 and 5 times this summer. So if you look at our Pleasant Ridge Facebook pages, our resident Facebook pages, there isn't a lot of love for DTE still. And certainly there's a lot of talk about going to the Public Service Commission following Dana Nessel's suggestions, and really there's a lot of continued upset. Again, trees, I mean, we love our trees, but until they fall and knock a line down. But I think much of what we've seen are at least where problems lie, it seems to be infrastructure as well. And DTE is going to have to get a lot of that repaired. I know it's a huge job, but yeah, Pleasant Ridge isn't, if you go out to not talk to most Pleasant Ridge residents, they will not be singing the praises of DTE, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, that's unfortunately what I think is going to be the case and continue to be the case in many places locally here in southeastern Michigan with these power outages as we continue to see more severe weather over time. Kurt, we appreciate having you on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Kurt Metzger with us, the mayor of Pleasant Ridge and Demographer and member of Detroit's Census-wide committee with us on the program today. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll check in with the business community. We'll speak to Small Business Association of Michigan's president, Brian Calley, about the state of Michigan's economy given the COVID-19 situation as it's ongoing, as well as the continued staffing crisis, so to speak, that is going on not only in the state of Michigan but all throughout the country, and how that's affecting our small businesses and the business community at large here in the state of Michigan. That and more coming up on the Megacast.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211, how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
One thing I like to do is go to small businesses, whether I'm shopping, eating. I like to go to places that aren't big chains, and in Michigan, we have a ton of those places too. So I'm not a traveler in Michigan, but if people are, those are the places they should be seeing. So to talk a little bit more about some of these small businesses, we are now joined by Brian Calley, who's the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan. So good morning, Brian. Thank you for being with us. How are you doing on this Thursday morning?
Well, it is a beautiful day, Erica. Thanks for having me back on the show. It's great to talk with you. And yeah, you know, as we look at what's happening with small business around the country, some industries are recovering really nicely and have adjusted to the environment that we have to exist in these days. But there are other industries that are really, really still struggling, and they tend to be those industries where there's face-to-face interaction with people, the ones where the rules are much more unpredictable. And so a lot of business owners are, I think, getting pretty nervous that they haven't been able to have an open field for economic recovery over the course of the last 17 months until this summer, and then heading into the fall. What is that going to hold? It's a lot of places around the country are starting to reimpose rules and requirements, and it's going to be tough on the smallest of businesses who really weathered the worst of the economic storm as compared to the entire economy.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely scary, and I've been thinking that a lot to myself as we see these restrictions being reimposed in all other places. I kind of wonder, when and if is that going to happen here. But before we continue, I want to ask you, and I'm sure this question has been asked a ton of times, but what constitutes something as a quote-unquote small business?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can look at that. The United States Small Business Administration considers 500 employees and fewer to be small, but that's pretty big, getting up to hundreds of employees. So in terms of our association, you can join our association all the way up to 500 employees, but the vast majority of businesses that consider themselves small have fewer than 100 employees. And in fact, if you were to look at our membership across the board, the majority of them have fewer than 50 employees. So it's everything from a solopreneur that's stringing together gigs to make a living to those who have, a team of dozens of people. But generally, it's those that their footprint for how and where they operate tends to be much more local, and the size of the business tends to be described in employment force of dozens rather than hundreds.
Yes, definitely. That does make sense, because to me, 500 kind of seems like a lot. But as we talk about businesses that have less and less employees, that makes me think about staffing issues. And I know probably about a year ago is when we were really talking about unemployment, and everyone just wanted to sit home on their couch and collect unemployment. Now, we're not seeing that as much anymore. Maybe we're just not hearing about it as much anymore. But I can tell you, I know restaurants that I walk into, you'll see every other table's open, and it's not anymore because they have to social distance. It's because they can't seat people because they don't have the staff. So what is that looking like from an inside perspective, and not just someone who's going in and noticing it? How much are these small businesses still struggling to get people to come into work?
It is the number one concern that we hear now that the restrictions, the closure orders in Michigan have been lifted. Staffing concerns have risen to number one by far. We hear this more than any other issue. And unemployment, the way the unemployment system worked was one of the components to that. But if you look at the businesses that were last to come online, the ones that were restricted for the longest period of time, their workforce really had to find something else to do for a living. And so when restaurants, for example, were closed to indoor dining for so long, all of a sudden, finally the government lets them open back up and do so in a full and robust way. Well, all their staff had to find other things to do, and so they're kind of starting from scratch. I've heard a lot of business owners that have described it like being back in startup mode, where they're trying to find that base of employees to even sustain an operation. So you see businesses that are limiting their hours, limiting the days that they are open simply because they can't find enough staff.
So I don't want to put this as choosing the lesser of two evils. I hate that I even just said that, but do you think it's these businesses have to decide what's worse, either staying open for more hours and just not being able to, let me rephrase. When they are open, is it better to seat all your tables but know that you have limited staff and you're not going to be able to serve as many people? The service isn't going to be as good, but at least people will be seated. Or do you block off half your tables and make people wait for longer, knowing that you don't have the adequate staff? Is that something that a lot of restaurants specifically are juggling, and they have to decide which one's better?
Yeah, and restaurants are being very innovative right now, and they're having to figure out when is the most economical time to be open. So, some places specialize more with the lunch crowd or breakfast, and so they might be only open in the beginning of the day because they don't get as much business in the end. Others are set up for weekends, and so they really have to just pick what's most important because they literally cannot staff up. It does look like that most businesses, though, are choosing to make sure that if they can't open with a minimum level of service, whatever they consider to be the minimal level of service that they have to deliver to their customers. If they can't do that, they don't open, and because bad service is just something that's difficult for anybody in the service industry to recover from. So rather than disappoint people who show up, limited hours seems to be utilized a little more often than that. But you also see them pulling out all the stops and in terms of recruitment and paying higher dollar amounts. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, it would have been unheard of to see places offering in restaurant positions in $20 and $25 an hour, even in fast food. So they're really doing everything that they can do to possibly find people, and it has helped some that the expectation that you'd be available and looking for work has been re-added in Michigan. So some people on unemployment that were just kind of waiting out the weeks have had to get back into the job market. But ultimately, there's been some fundamental shifts. And some businesses, by the way, are starting to implement technology. I went to one restaurant, for example. They couldn't get enough wait staff. They kind of rolled the dice on a system where you order. There's a QR code. It brings up a website, and you make the order, and then somebody brings your food out to you, but you don't actually see a person until your food's coming out. And that's an example of a technology being deployed right now because of the shortage in the workforce. And who knows? I mean, maybe that will really catch on. And people are businesses are figuring out how to run their businesses with fewer people because they don't have any other choice right now.
I actually think that's really cool, and that makes me think of, those conveyor belt sushi places where you sit around and you just tap on a screen and then the food comes around to you on a conveyor belt. I know, like I said, I see it with sushi. I don't know if other types of places are doing that, but they totally could. You just, the food shoots out to you. But, we talk about all these negative things and innovation, but I'm going to try and make this a little bit positive. Have you seen any of your businesses have success out of this? Have any of them been able to find a silver lining? Are any of them better than they were before? Sorry.
There are definitely businesses that have found new opportunity through the way that the world has changed. There's where people are working, for example. Our IT companies that do networking and office setup and there's endless opportunity because people are getting set up in multiple places, and so there are some that have found that type of opportunity. A lot that got into lines of business tied to the pandemic recovery as well, but that was more a place filler, while whatever else they did before was not as in demand. So yeah, things are changing. Actually, I think that the remote work movement and kind of this abrupt change to remote work, while it's created a lot of turmoil in the marketplace and where and how people consume, it's also given employers who are having a hard time finding employees a wider range of geography to search for employees from. So whereas you might have needed somebody who was within commute distance before, maybe you don't need that anymore in terms of how the job has been restructured. We also see a lot of businesses that are figuring out that they're, the footprint that they're, the space that they're leasing, that they don't quite need as much. But again, there's always two sides to that. So on the one side, somebody can figure out, hey, I can operate more efficiently. I can get employees from across the landscape. I can reduce the amount of size that I'm leasing. But then you got to think of the whole ecosystem of businesses that are there to serve office workers in particular. The lunch crowd or dry cleaners, so many different businesses that simply exist to serve office workers. If those office workers are now at a different zip code every day, you can think of how that, it creates opportunity over here, it creates a lot of turmoil and strife over there. So with this pandemic, there are silver linings. There are definitely businesses that have found opportunity, but unfortunately, it's opportunity and on the other side of the spectrum, total financial ruin. So it's tough. But here's the other thing too that I've been really pleased to see is that more people than we've seen in a very long time are turning to entrepreneurialism. So the number of new business starts, and we know this by looking at the tax identification number filings. The new starts of businesses throughout this pandemic has actually been way up, higher than we've seen definitely in the last 10 years. So there are a lot of people that are looking at it like, hey, for a lot of different reasons, I'm sure, but I'm gonna go for it. I got this idea, always been thinking about starting a business, and I'm just gonna go for it. We see it not just higher, but multiples higher than what we see in normal times.
Yeah, Brian, I was just going to mention, I was driving around West Bloomfield area over the weekend, and I could not believe how many new restaurants I saw either just opened or were getting ready to open. And I thought, these people are either the bravest people in the world or the craziest people in the world, or a combination of the two. So what advice do you have for companies, especially in the restaurant industry, who might be opening now, how they can just get through this and survive so a year from now, there's still a good, thriving business?
Well, it's a great question. You alluded to, is this brave or crazy to open a business right now? But in a lot of times when there's a bunch of upheaval, people that really just go for it and put everything into it are rewarded for that. And I think that really the community wants to rally around small businesses as well, if we just have an environment where we can give them a chance to. So the advice and it's not just for restaurants, it's for all business starts, is that you have to be prepared to put everything into it, like your time and your motion and your effort and your determination. You have to have perseverance, just to make it through those initial stages, and to be very responsive to the opportunities. I mean, it's still the case where, entrepreneurs will often say, it seems like the harder I work, the better luck I have, and that's because hard work pays off. And so it won't be easy. It's never easy, but that's really what drives our economy ultimately. Whether you're talking about the corporate giants that exist in our state that rely on a supply chain of very nimble, innovative small businesses that can make the whole supply chain work, or standalone individual businesses that it's about somebody with an idea and had the guts to take that idea through to create opportunity for their community. So I'm really excited about the startups that we see happening in a lot of different industries. It'll take a while before we see how successful they are, and whether or not their survival rates are higher, lower, or the same as what we normally see. But I think there's an opportunity here, and it's one that I try to make sure that our policymakers understand too. The more stability and predictability that we can provide in terms of public policy, the better the chance that this new surge of entrepreneurialism will have roots to stand. Because nothing will throw a wet blanket on economic activity like uncertainty. The pandemic brings uncertainty. To the extent that we can provide more predictability and certainty to what is going to happen in the operating environment, I think the better these businesses will do.
So, talking about these new strategies, this is something that's not really a new strategy, but the internet. Just how much has the online presence for businesses been able to help? And are we seeing some businesses that are only online now?
Yeah, there's definitely, that's a trend that's been happening. It was obviously accelerated very substantially in the throughout the pandemic. Here's the thing though, is that some businesses like Amazon were just really well positioned to scoop up a whole bunch of new business during the pandemic. And so it's not as easy as a retailer. Let's say you got a retailer on Woodward downtown, and their main traffic are office workers that are coming downtown every day to work. Now all those office workers moved, or many of them moved, and maybe permanently. So what do? Most of them already had some online presence, but the idea that you can just get a website, go online, do remote procurement, and you're good to go is not very realistic. I mean, to have that online presence, for somebody to go online to look for something and find a particular small business, it's not particularly likely unless you already had a strong online presence, or you had some other network that could kind of give you a boost as you got started. And so there are some great examples of businesses that have a strong online presence. They tend to be the businesses that are tied into some sort of a social responsibility or a social cause that has that kind of viral tendency online. But this to move from a brick and mortar type of base operation to an online, it's not the sort of thing you can just do overnight. And it's tough because, you search for something online, and to kind of get through the noise of the giant online retailers to where somebody would even have a shot of considering a smaller business, it's an uphill battle for sure.
Definitely. And with more, sorry, these keep falling out. I'm not used to wearing headphones, but with more of the online presence, a lot of that is not necessarily online stores, but just being able to do stuff on Zoom. And businesses are giving up office space, which then I guess can help because it makes them have to pay less rent for their employees. So do we think this is a trend we're going to see moving forward of businesses realizing, hey, we don't need to be paying rent in places if we have all our employees work online? Do you think that's going to be something that we continue to see, or do you think they are eager to have that face-to-face interaction and it's worth it for them to be paying rent places?
I think we're going to see a transition here in the future where a lot of work stays remote that has been remote this whole time. So employees clearly have a preference for remote work, and employers are going to have to respond or be responsive to that. So you'll see hybrid systems, you'll see kind of hoteling type situations where people can be present at the office. Some positions do require more on-site work, but what I expect to happen is that there will over time be kind of a center of gravity, and people will start to migrate more back to the office when the pandemic is further in the rearview window. And that's just because that's where the spontaneous interactions happen. That's where deals get done. That's where people collaborate. They get to know each other and trust each other and form relationships that go beyond just the work at hand at that moment. So I think that that you're going to see more in the future than in the past, but I think probably a lot will stay remote, and then gradually people are going to figure out that, hey, it's better for my career learning this line of business, kind of advancing through, forming relationships with the team that I work with if I do more work in person. So I think you'll see kind of a curve where it comes back some, but I don't think it'll ever be the same. I think downtown areas in particular are going to have to be reimagined. A lot of this office space that exists today is going to have to turn into something else. There's some work on the what's essentially like the historic tax credit, the federal historic tax credit, where maybe they could use that for conversion of office space into residential in downtown areas. And that really on its face, that might make a lot of sense. You think about these areas, it probably would be better for them to have more people permanently living or living full time downtown than to have office space where people are driving there every day. So there are ideas, there are ways that we can go. Every answer for every community is going to be a little bit different, but I think those communities that anticipate this, that put teams together to work on it and think through what's our best step forward here, and then also to be intentional about connecting people whose opportunity has gone away from the pandemic to those places where more opportunity was created. In the last Great Recession, I think that our state did not do very well and connect. The world changed, globalization changed, offshoring, a revolution in productivity. And so a lot of people, what they did for a living was no longer necessary for the process, or at least not here. And so there wasn't really a strong public policy answer for how do we connect people who lost opportunity to, the world has changed, where the opportunity went. And that could happen again if we're not very intentional about making those connections.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you so much for talking with us, giving us all this insight. We do have to move along, but it's always great talking to you. We really appreciate it. Is there any final things you want to share about small businesses moving forward, thoughts, feelings, anything we should know?
I just want to advocate that people ask, what can we do to support small business? There's something that every single individual person can do, and that is get your vaccine. That protects us from a future of closures and lockdowns and regulations that are expensive. They're harder on small businesses than big businesses. And I understand it's a personal choice, and everybody's got to make their own personal choice, but I'd ask you to please, on behalf of the of small businesses that really can't afford another set of lockdowns and closures. So please consider doing what you can do to limit the spread of COVID-19.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your day.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in our studios in West Bloomfield Township. You're viewing the Megacast on Civic Center TV and on Birmingham Area Municipal Access on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. You're also watching us online, civiccentertv.com, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM, as well as on My Michigan Television, the My Michigan Television app on your phone and on your smart TV, as well as online, mymitv.com. That is mymitv.com, as well as on your radio home for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills. The BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. To kick off the second half of the show, we're pleased to be joined by one of our new favorite restaurants here in our local area in the four communities over in Greater West Bloomfield. Chris Gadulka, the executive chef, and the farm manager, Kristina Pruccoli, join us from the Sylvan Table restaurant in Sylvan Lake. Chris, Kristina, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having us on. We appreciate it.
You. Appreciate having you guys on. And so the Sylvan Table opened officially, had the grand opening on June 1st. So it's been now a couple of months that you've been in operation. How are things going over there?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. It's been a tremendous opening process. We're almost 3 full months in, and it's been foot to the floor the entire time. We've been amazed at the reception that we've gotten from our community and everybody around, as well as just, the everyday, spectacular conversations we have with our guests. And, it's been almost overwhelming and just, very humbling and heartfelt. Awesome.
And this is really a special arrangement that you have over there where you're growing a lot of the food and you're cultivating a lot of the food that you're serving to your customers really right on site at the restaurant there at the farm. It's right behind the restaurant building over there on Inverness in Sylvan Lake. And so that, of course, drew a lot of excitement and a lot of anticipation from the community as you grew toward your grand opening on June 1st. And I know initially after that opening, it was next to impossible to get a table at the Sylvan Table to sit down. Has that momentum been sustained over these past couple months, or is it becoming easier for people in the community that want to try the Sylvan Table to come into your restaurant?
So that momentum is still going on. We still see a line at the door every day before 5 o'clock. However, we recommend reservations, for dining inside for the tables, but our bar is first come, first serve, and the patio is first come, first serve. So there are definitely tables available. It's just, on spectacular days like this, there might be a small wait, but it's a touch easier than the first month, but we do a rolling 60-day booking. So we open our reservations 60 days out from today, and we're seeing those fill up extremely quick. So usually anything 45 days and out now is pretty well booked or really close to full already. So it's like I said, it's been humbling and just the reception that we've received is just beyond anything we could have expected.
Executive Chef Chris Gadulka and Farm Manager Kristina Pruccoli join us from the Sylvan Table restaurant located on Inverness, just off of Orchard Lake Road in Sylvan Lake, Michigan. And you opened on June 1st. It's still in the middle of the pandemic, but you took some special extra time from when the restaurant was ready to be open, the physical building itself, to when you actually did open, to do proper training with your staff, to really go through the processes that you had in place. And then you're opening at a time where COVID-19, the situation was a lot friendlier, as friendly as it can be, than it is at this moment in time. How have things changed since June 1st, given the current situation in terms of your operations at the Sylvan Table, to keep those that are coming into the restaurant, those that are seated outside potentially at the restaurant, as safe as possible?
So we are seeing, some uptick in, obviously guest reception to coming in, and we are doing our best to ensure that everybody is still relatively socially distanced. We're accepting and accommodating to everybody. We do recommend that people come in masks. We make sure that our outdoor seating is available and accessible to anybody who wants it. And then we're following all of the CDC, Michigan Health Department guidelines for everything. We have ensured that our staff is vaccinated, and that's something that's just very important to us. We not only want to keep all of our guests safe, but we want to keep all of our staff safe too. We can't do this without the people that are involved, and that's something that we find is just the number one priority for us.
And how about maintaining staff during this time? Because that's also been an issue for a lot of other businesses, especially in the restaurant industry and in retail and those kinds of industries. Not only has it been tough for people to bring new staff in, part-time staff, full-time staff, whatever the case may be, it's been tough to retain people. What has set your business apart from maybe others in your industry that is encouraging people to stick around and provide the ability to have the staffing necessary to maintain the momentum of your restaurant after its opening in June?
So a lot of it is the location and what we have to offer.
Yeah.
The building.
The concept of this project as well. I mean, many individuals are motivated, especially if not anything, this pandemic has illuminated the food security and sovereignty. And so I think there's a big momentum of individuals who, in the community, especially here, who want to learn more and also support projects like this.
And so, Kristina, let's continue on with that, because so much of the focus of this restaurant has been on keeping the ingredients local and really on site in some cases, literally, where you're cultivating hyper seasonal, as it's marked on my notes, ingredients that are used in all of your dishes at the restaurant. So what is sourced on site and what do you import? And when you are importing any other food materials, where are you looking to get those from, especially with your hyper local focus?
Well, growing on the farm currently are a lot of our herbs and salad greens, radishes, tomatoes, eggplants, summer squash, zucchini, green beans. I mean, there's a lot of crops that we have that are pulling in right now. And then locally, we support a lot of small farms in the area, and Chris can speak to some of those.
Yeah, so we're pulling in produce from Maple Creek Farm in Yale, Michigan, Reroute in Pontiac. We've used Fisheye Farms for our meats. We're using DeVries, Sweetgrass. We're trying to keep our area to about a 250 to 300 mile radius. We have pulled some items from Northern Ohio, just based on ripening time. Usually that's our like apricots and peaches. But as the season progresses in Michigan, it all switches back over to what's going on in Michigan. So, this is, as our guests are coming in and asking us, what can I expect to see? Right now tomatoes are huge, and everybody knows Michigan tomatoes are the best. So this will be the only time of year, until they run out, that you'll see a fresh tomato on the menu. When they're gone, we'll still have tomatoes, but it'll be what we've harvested during the season that we found a way to preserve, through fermentation or dehydrating or sun drying or pickling, in some way. And that'll be the same as it is with all of our produce. And that gets us through the winter until we get our first spring harvests again. As well as we have, Kristina working 3 amazing high tunnels out there that will be providing,
winter greens.
Yeah.
So I'll be growing for all 4 seasons. So those tunnels will be in production, typically with spinach and kale and overwintering carrots. But they'll be in production, so we'll still continue to have produce right from the farm during those winter months.
We're joined by Kristina Pruccoli, the farm manager of the Sylvan Table restaurant, and executive chef Chris Gadulka as well. And Kristina and Chris, more recently, your business did go to the Sylvan Lake Zoning Board of Appeals, hoping to expand the reach of your farm beyond just the plants, but also to have some animals on site so that you can provide some of the animal protein as well that's in some of your dishes from right there on site. And there's a little bit of controversy surrounding that. There's definitely a heated debate from that CBA meeting last week, and no decision's been made on that. But just to stay as neutral as possible and get your perspective from your business to the community that maybe wasn't at that meeting and had just heard through word of mouth through neighbors about what went on there. Why now, and why at this point do you want to add then animals to the farm there in Sylvan Lake to help benefit your restaurant?
Well, animals play a very large role when you're looking at land as in whole. So they can offer so much more to what we are doing in a larger scale. So they can prep an area of earth for us, like for instance, pig's root. They help to aerate the ground naturally. It's not equipment that is tilling. Their feces is potent and very rich in nutrients. They also help a way of providing for our food waste, our kitchen scraps. So carrot tops that can't be used at the quantity that we're growing, these animals get to eat that rather than it going to a landfill. Because about 24% of our landfills is food waste. And then we also look at our population that is starving. So it's a very big problem. And so we don't want to play a role in that. So having animals is a great way of reducing our waste, helping the soil fertility, and also being an educational access point for the community. They don't have to travel very far to get an experience with a farm animal or a farm.
And there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about the food insecurity situation here in the United States, certainly throughout the world, and some of the regulations, not only in the state of Michigan, but throughout the U.S., where leftover food from restaurants or food that is sent back because it's not necessarily satisfactory to the person it's being served to, not being able to be boxed up and be provided to people that may not have access to food. It has to then go into a landfill. So a situation like that would certainly be more prudent to the situation with food waste than it going to a landfill. That being said, in the end, the zoning board decided it didn't have enough information and voted 5-0 to table this issue. The next meeting will be on September 8th and will include a guided tour of the restaurant facilities. It's a really detailed article from the Oakland Press, from our friends over there at the Oakland Press about this, and Paula Passy wrote a really nice article about that. You can find that on the Oakland Press's website. So Chris, Kristina, just another couple minutes left before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else that would be interesting or important for our audience to know, or anything else you'd like to say today?
Yeah, so I mean, earlier we discussed, the hyper seasonality of the menu, and that's something that we're really focusing on, because right now is like home run season for
the bounty time.
Yeah, everything is coming in, so our menu is getting more diverse as we go now. All sorts of Michigan produce is coming in, and a lot of people don't understand or realize that Michigan is the second most diverse crop producer in the United States, only following California. So I mean, it's all here, and we're going to be taking advantage of that over the next couple of months as everything comes in. And we'd just like people to come in and enjoy an amazing experience and be able to experience it with us. So.
Chris, you said your reservations open up about 60 days in advance, and people need to get on that right away. They're still very busy over there. So if they want to make a reservation in advance so they can get in at the Sylvan Table restaurant, how can they do that?
So we have our reservation system is set up through Talk, which is one of the 2 big reservation sites, and that's all online, and or you can call the restaurant.
All right. Well, Chris, Kristina, we appreciate having you on today. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Chris Gadulka and Kristina Pruccoli from the Sylvan Table restaurant in Sylvan Lake joining us today on the Megacast. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, something that definitely helps farmers. That definitely helps our local animal populations and is a big benefit to our local eateries and restaurants and so on, are bees. And we'll speak to our favorite local bee expert, Brian Peterson, the founder of Bees in the D. On the other side of the break, you're watching and listening to the Megacast.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you did. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in our studios here in West Bloomfield Township as we broadcast all throughout the state of Michigan on CivicCenterTV.com and on the My Michigan television app. That's on your smartphone. It's on your smart TV and it's online. MyMichiganTV.com. That's MYMITV.com to learn more information. And then go to CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast and find more information on all of our partners, not only My, but also Birmingham Area Municipal Access and the Birmingham Area Cable Board, as well as 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, and others that join us each and every day on our family of television, radio, and other media outlets as we continue to talk to interesting people and organizations all throughout our community, not just about COVID-19, but about other things that are happening around town as well, including the founder of Bees in the D, Brian Peterson, who joins us now once again on the Megacast. Brian, thanks for coming back.
Hey, Tyler, always great to be with you.
Appreciate having you on. How are things going with your organization at this time?
We are as busy as a bee, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it seems very busy. Of course, we recently had on Aaron Filipski. He's the Director of Recreation and Public Services at the City of Royal Oak, and he had great things to say about your honeybees that are at the Normandy Oaks Park in Royal Oak. Want to talk a little bit more, just for those that didn't see that interview with Aaron, about how your bees ended up in that park?
Yeah, so a lot of people may not know, but we partner up with businesses, parks, schools, you name it, to help promote the conservation and education of our pollinators, specifically honeybees with our organization, but we do talk about a lot of the native bees as well. And the Royal Oak Parks reached out to us, and oh my gosh, it couldn't have a better setting. For the first year having hives there, the bees are flourishing. If you haven't been to that park, it is just remarkable. So another great partnership. That's what we love about Bees in the D, all these Detroit taking care of Detroit efforts.
We're joined by Brian Peterson. He's the founder of Bees in the D with us today on the Megacast. And you talk about community partners, and you talk about partnership. Right now, Bees in the D in need of some additional partnership as you're competing in the Rock Family of Companies Community Challenge. And just to review what that's about, this is a quote from the challenge itself. Quote, it's a friendly fundraising campaign launched by the Rock Family of Companies where organizations compete to raise the most money with the top teams winning grand prize cash donations of up to $25,000 in closed quote. So what is this competition that you're in? What are you competing in against other organizations, and what do you need from supporters out in the community?
Well, we are very thankful that the Rock family does this. We've been doing it for the last few years, and this year is so crucial because with COVID, we haven't been able to do a lot of our fundraisers, our live BBQ and our auction. And so this year has been really important, and the fact that they do that is fantastic, but the description is perfect. It is such a fun competition. We get to meet a lot of other nonprofit organizations that are trying to make a difference as well. And what it is, it's just an online campaign where people can donate, but the challenge part that kind of comes in, which is fun, is they do a lot of little mini challenges. They've already done 2, and like last week was whoever has the most unique donors, and this week is, for this week, whoever raises the most money can get a bonus prize. But ultimately, yes, the grand prize is a large $25,000 for the organization that raises the most funds. So we're putting our name out there. It is a little harder as a smaller nonprofit to compete with some of the bigger ones, but our supporters have always come through and have been so generous to help us continue our mission. So we're very excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, 153 just from their search function under their donate button on their website, rockcommunitychallenge.com. That's rockcommunitychallenge.com, where you can donate to Bees in the D and other organizations through this challenge. So far, it looks like from their website, they've already raised just under $400,000, $392,711 raised from 2,964 donors. And if you want, again, rockcommunitychallenge.com, you click on donate, it'll bring you to another page where you can search for Bees in the D and explore the other organizations as well if you'd like to make a donation. Otherwise, also going on with Bees in the D, you have some other events coming up, including Blake's Sunflower Festival on September 4th through 6th. What can people expect when they go to this particular community event?
Well, we love being a part of Blake's festivals. We were a part of the Lavender Festival earlier this summer. It was great to see people out and about again. And so we have a booth set up there where you can purchase our fun little t-shirts. You can get, of course, raw honey. We make our own lip balms and a lot of other products. We also at our booth have a observation hive where you can get face-to-face with a couple thousand of our dear friends in that hive. And it's just fun to talk with people, helping to educate, especially this time of year, or right around Labor Day, when the yellow jackets, which are a wasp, are out in force, and they are definitely at the cider mills. And a lot of people make the mistake that those are bees. And so I just did a presentation earlier today here in Plymouth. This is our bee classroom that we have here. And I was sharing with the kids, like, have you ever been blamed for something that you didn't do? And of course, they have stories. Well, that's kind of the life of a honeybee, because we constantly are saying these bees are so bad, especially towards the fall, but those aren't bees at all. They're actually a species of wasp known as a yellow jacket. The bees are out enjoying the flowers and getting the nectar from the flowers. So it's a big misconception that we like to try to educate both young and old alike. But we'd love for you to come out and see us there. It's a very fun event.
And there's a really interesting video on that misidentification that you have on your organization's website, beesinthed.com. Just scroll down about halfway down that page, you'll see a video. You'll see Brian holding up a piece of paper that literally says the case of misidentification. You can learn more about that, and as well as explore other videos from Bees in the D at beesinthed.com. And so, Brian, in terms of education efforts, of course, you're talking about the misidentification education effort that's going on right now. What other efforts is your organization putting out there in the community to inform people about bees? Because they continue, especially at this time of the year where they're out and about, and because it's warm and because of the flowers being out in bloom and so on and so forth. What other education efforts are being put forth by your organization to help people develop a better relationship with the bees in their community?
Well, as a fifth grade teacher, that's my main job. Teaching runs through my blood, and I have found that one of our biggest avenues is actually social media through Facebook and Instagram. So I like to do a lot of short videos because I find that a lot of people click and then they want to keep clicking. And so I try to do 1-minute videos or less that kind of share about some of the misconceptions like you talked about, going into the hives. I do a Forager Friday every Friday where I talk about a plant that grows in Michigan and how it relates with our pollinators. But we also do some workshops. I just did an all-day workshop educating people how to become beekeepers at the Outdoor Adventure Center where we have 4 hives right on the DeQuinder Cut. And then I've done some hive tours. It's fun to be back in action and be able to do some face-to-face events again this year. But yeah, like you said, our webpage is just packed full of so many infographics and videos. And I even created Bees in the D Junior during the COVID year for parents to go to. There are lessons that include crafts and storytelling and lessons about bees and many different aspects of bees, like the waggle dance, like honey, which can be done from home. So we're trying our best to, educate, even though we're hopefully coming out of a difficult time, but that's one of our main pillars of our mission. So I want to make sure that I'm being true to that.
And people have had a lot of time to explore their lives over the course of the pandemic while they've been stuck at home, while they've been getting progressively more and more bored just doing the same thing day in and day out and wanting to get back out in their community and do something different and pick up new hobbies. Have you found that with this reopening that's been going on over the past several months and continues on slowly but surely over time as we go forward, that you're having more people in the community be interested in participating with your organization or at least learning more about bees and beekeeping and so on?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to back up a little bit too and say that silver lining here, a lot more people became connected with nature during the pandemic because they could go out to the parks. They could learn more about the natural world. So that was a real silver lining. But you are so right, Tyler. All of a sudden, people are eager to be a part of events. So we have noticed an uptick of people interested and being a part of our organization. Our volunteer page, which is on Facebook, is now almost upwards to 300 people. Wow. And we have a lot of people that are joining us for our honey harvest. We do signups on that volunteer page. And it's just like we have the Whitney dinner. We have 2 hives at the Whitney restaurant in Detroit, and we have the dinner where Chef Natasha's going to come back, and all the dishes are inspired by honey, using the honey from the hives there at the Whitney. And already the ticket sales far outpass what we've sold last year. And there's still tickets available. We just keep adding tables and chairs. It's going to be out on the patio, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you have a lot of my apologies, a lot of interesting locations for these hives all throughout Metro Detroit and in the city, including, as you said, at the Whitney, but also at the top of the TCF Center. They have a green roof over there as well. Are you finding that more places in various areas in Metro Detroit and in the state of Michigan are wanting to put in these hives as they're learning more about the true impact that bees have in our communities?
Definitely. And it's not just that they're learning about that, but they're also realizing that honeybees are very docile creatures. Yeah. There's those misconceptions again. And when they see that the hives, the bees are doing what they need to do, yeah, we're up to 63 partners now across 5 counties, which is unbelievable. And I loved your guest just before I came on, that more and more restaurants are starting to go more local. And we actually work with a lot of restaurants now using our honey in their menus and even putting hives at their location. For example, at the Shinola Hotel, we have 4 hives, and the honey is used for the restaurant downstairs, the Foundation Hotel. And yeah, like you said, we're on the TCF Center on their beautiful green roof. It is just, we're a small nonprofit of 5 years. It's our 5th year, and the growth has been amazing, which is a testimony to people realizing the importance of our pollinators to our ecosystem, for our food industry, also for the food chain.
Yeah, it helps support the restoration of our local industries. It helps support restoration of our local environments and restoration of our communities as well. I mean, there's a great article on your website on beesandthedee.com/news where there's an article from Out Here magazine about forgotten spaces becoming new homes for honeybees, because we're seeing these abandoned lots not only in the city but in other areas as well, and places that maybe used to have businesses but for years were empty, that are being torn down. There's nothing there and nobody knows what they can put in there, and here they are putting in beehives that are not only having a benefit for the community, providing honey to people and organizations all throughout Metro Detroit, but also raising awareness for the productive work that bees do. But it's also helping to provide purpose to places in our community that maybe have been less desirable or have been looked down on for years, and gives people something to focus in on that's positive.
Yeah, the green space in Detroit is amazing, and Detroit is really becoming a leader in urban agriculture and farming, and now in urban beekeeping, because it goes hand in hand. And actually, studies have been done across the nation, actually the world, and we get to kind of see it firsthand because we have bees in rural areas, suburban area, and in urban areas. And actually, beehives, honeybees, do better in urban areas across the nation because there's more diversity of plants, even though you would think that it would be more the rural areas, but we've created such mono societies in those rural areas that diversity that really helps our bees flourish it's a testimony to how well they're doing in the city, which models us as well. We need a diversity of food, and that's where our pollinators are so important, because if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have that diversity of food, and that's part of our mission. We've got to keep our pollinators strong. We've got to keep their populations healthy so that we can enjoy all these wonderful foods.
We're joined by Brian Peterson, founder of Bees in the D, with us today on the Megacast. And not all these bees have these special hives that are being put in on vacant lots or in people's backyards or in parks and whatever. And so, but they need somewhere to be productive, and so they maybe will take and set up shop on someone's gutters or by their front door in the shade or so on and so forth. And they're doing productive work there. They're minding their own business, but they're in our space as well. For people that are encountering a beehive at their home, on their property, and are maybe concerned about that, what should they do to create a situation that's, of course, most opportune for themselves and their families, but also doesn't harm or disrupt the work that's being done by these bees that, like you said, are otherwise docile if they're not being interfered with?
Well, Tyler, I'm so glad you bring that up, because I get 12 to 20 calls or emails a day, especially this time of year, and 90% of those are not bees at all. They are actually wasps, because wasps will take up homes and actually build paper-type nests up in the corners. Honeybees actually need a larger cavity. Now, there are times that honeybees could get behind siding or in an empty cavity of a garage wall. Those are referred to as cutouts. And there are beekeepers, we don't personally do it, we just remove swarms, but I have numbers of people that can come out and do those cutouts to help move those bees to a more desirable location and a safer location in a hive where they can be managed and checked for health. But we have some educational things if you go to beesandthedee.com/bees that actually show you the different nests of bees and the different looks of the bees and wasps, so that you can help identify which ones they are. And really at this time of year especially, most of them are wasps, which are important to our ecosystem as well. They're just not those power pollinators like our bees are.
You can find more information on Bees in the D on the website beesinthed.com, as well as on Twitter, twitter.com/beesinthed or @beesinthed. And I need to go back to the website and watch that video about the misconceptions, because here I am asking about those hives. They're wasps in most of these cases. They're not the bees. And so we can all learn something about the bees in our community so that we're helpful to them and they continue to be helpful to our communities as well. Brian Peterson, the founder of Bees in the D, with us on the Megacast. Before we let you go, Brian, just another minute or so, anything else that would be interesting or important for our audience to know, or anything else you'd like to say today?
Well, I can't sign off without sharing some very exciting news. We had a 10-year goal of building one of the first pollinator education centers in the nation, and we are 5 years ahead of schedule. Wow. We just purchased land from the Land Bank of Detroit, and we are going to be putting an education center and botanic gardens in core city of Detroit. We're upcycling shipping containers. And you can see that design through Studio Detroit that has been so gracious and generous with us, that helped design this on our website, right on the main page if you just scroll down a little bit. And so we started the fundraising for that, and excited to have some very generous people that believe in our mission and understand what we're trying to do that are helping us out. So very excited about that, and can't wait to get it built so that we can have people on site educate more about our pollinators, about our gardens, rain gardens, of how we can build and work together with nature, especially after this year of rain with all the runoff water. So we're very excited about that project.
Yeah, it's great news to hear. We've talked to you about this, the potential for this acquisition from the Detroit Land Bank several times before. And so good news that you have received that property, and you will be putting this project forward. Congratulations, and thank you, Brian.
Thank you. It's happening.
It is. Thanks for being with us today.
I appreciate it. Have a great one.
You as well. We appreciate having you on. Brian Peterson, founder of Bees in the D. Learn more information at beesinthed.com. And of course, you can go to rockcommunitychallenge.com to donate to Bees in the D for their challenge, opportunity for them to win upwards of $25,000 in additional cash prizes that help them do great work in our community, as well as other local nonprofit organizations that could also use your help. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll continue to talk about how some organizations and groups are continuing to bring the fun back in 2021. We'll be speaking with the president of fun, as he's known, Mike Sukent, the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association, joins us next on the Megacast.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife, and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe, alongside our studio producer, Calvin Brown, in our studios here in West Bloomfield, Michigan. We got about just under 15 minutes left in the show, and we want to end the show by having some fun. Not that we don't have fun all throughout the 2 hours that we're on the program Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, but we need more fun in our lives. We waited long enough to have some fun, and we are now joined by the president of fun, the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association. Mike Sukent joins us now on the Megacast. Mike, thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Tyler, for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate having you on. So that you can also, anyone can find more information on your organization and events at michiganfun.com. What are some interesting events coming up locally and really across the state in the coming weeks and months? Of course, we know about the Woodward Dream Cruise, but even beyond that.
Well, in conjunction with the Woodward Dream Cruise is the Flint Back to the Bricks. I was at a preview party last night at the Birch Run Speedway. They had cars all across that half-mile track. It was a great showing. People are excited. Again, and I've been saying this all year long since May, people are just hungry to get out there and start interacting and getting back to their friends and family and their relationships. And every single festival and event that has been able to come off this year has had record attendance and record revenue generated because people are just so excited to get out and about. Almost as excited as I was listening to your last speaker talk about honey in the D. I mean, I get honey in my coffee every morning and honey on my warm biscuits, and all that stuff is fun. It makes you feel good, kind of like going to a festival and event and seeing all your friends that you haven't seen since last year.
We're joined by Mike Sukent. He's the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association, with us on the Megacast. And as these organizations are planning these events that are coming up in the next coming month, as they have been for the next coming months and throughout the rest of 2021, COVID-19 still very much is looming behind us. We've seen an uptick in cases recently across the U.S., not necessarily as severely here in the state of Michigan, and hopefully that continues to be the situation, but it's still there and it's still out there, and there's still concern regarding the virus. How is that accounting into their plans going through the rest of 2021 and looking into 2022 as they're planning these events, especially as they're, in many cases, comeback events after they were canceled or done without in 2020?
Well, Tyler, obviously everyone's keeping an eye on it. It's that shadow in the darkness that you're wondering what exactly is it, and is it coming out, or is it just going to be something passing? COVID obviously is real, and the Delta variant is obviously real. We don't know exactly what the effects of that are going to be or what the ramifications are going to be. So, I'm still sticking with the same thing I did for the last 2 years. Plan your event, come up with your A plan, your B plan, and if God forbid you have to have a C plan for cancellation, then you have it. But if you don't plan the event, you won't have things in place for it. And so far, everybody, as I said earlier, everyone is having a fantastic year right now. We are in the process of planning our 29th annual convention. We are excited to not be virtual this year. We're going to be up at Boyne Mountain, November 4th through 6th. But yes, even we're looking at our plan A and our plan B. We will not have a plan C. We will either do it in person, or if we have to, we'll add a virtual component to it. But, life has to go on. And I think that's what we're seeing, is that the majority of people are of the belief that life has to go on and we need to have that interaction. Festivals and events, fairs, I mean, this is county fair month. I mean, everybody's got their county fairs going on. And fantastic entertainment at those fairs and lots of activities. But, festivals and events and fairs are a major economic stimulator to our economy here in the state of Michigan. Festivals, fairs, and events makes up over $1 billion of economic impact. So it's a necessity. It's a necessity for our state of mind. It's a necessity for our small town businesses that need to have that out of town money coming in to buy those coffee, donuts, that Michigan honey, whatever the case may be, to be able to promote and support those businesses. A lot of those small towns, it's the festival, fair, and event that comes to town that gives them that bump that they need to get through those slower months of the year.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Grand Haven for their annual Coast Guard Festival, and a lot of those businesses, I talked to a few of the smaller businesses that were in town there, and about the impact of having the Coast Guard Festival back in town, and they were saying they make the vast majority of their money for the entire year during that 1 week period, and of course the summer season is more fruitful for them as well because it is a beach town. But that 1 week is the biggest week of the year. Not having that in 2020 had, of course, a significant impact on businesses that were already hard-strapped for cash because of the situation with COVID-19. So Mike Sukent's with us. He's the president and the CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association, joining us today on the Megacast. And in terms of the virtual element, because many of these events are going back to in-person. They want to go back to in-person, stay away from virtual, because people have been clamoring to get back in person and back interacting with other people and returning to some sense of normalcy as we slowly but surely begin our emergence outside of the pandemic. But in terms of virtual options, are those still being encouraged in planning these events to give people that maybe are not able to show up in person for one reason or another, whether it be proximity, whether it be medical reasons or something else, an opportunity to still participate and maybe another stream of revenue for these organizations as well?
Well, the events that are going on virtually, they keep people involved and keep interest, but they really are not doing much for revenue generation. Okay. I mean, if you're going to have a road race, and I'll use in the Flint, they have the Bobby Krim Festival of Races. They'll bring in over 100,000 people in a weekend into downtown Flint. To do that race virtually, you may still get the people that compete in that race, but your downtown community is not going to see $1 of that. So, is it something that keeps people engaged? Yes. Is it a substitute for having it in person? It's a poor substitute. I mean, you do what you have to do. We would do the same thing for our convention, making it virtual for those people that are uncomfortable with coming to an event if the Delta variant becomes more of a concern. But people want to have that interaction. People want to be able to meet people and to talk to them. And I'm a hugger. I love to give people hugs. It's been a long 15, 16 months. No one's hugged me. I am hug deprived.
Oh no. We can't have that. No, we can't have hug deprivation. Enough of the hug deprivation. Let's get back out there, but do it safely as well. We're joined by Mike Sukent, the president and CEO of the Michigan Festival and Events Association. And we got a lot of really fun events coming up. The big one, of course, here in the local area is the Woodward Dream Cruise. And we also have, on top of that, another great event that's going to be kicking off at the M1 Concourse August 20th and 21st. It's the Woodward Dream Show. Can you tell us a little bit about what people can expect at that event as they're cruising all throughout Metro Detroit in their classic cars and exploring the great automotive culture we have in metropolitan Detroit?
Well, I think the Southeast Michigan in general is just full of those gearhead car fans, and being able, whether you're at the Woodward Dream Cruise or the M1 Concourse, to be able to see those beautiful automobiles, to hear the roar of those motors, to be able to look at the chrome and the polish that people put on those cars and the amount of love that they put into those vehicles, it's like going to an art museum. It's a passion that makes your heart race. And, we here in Michigan, we're the automobile capital of the world. And to have to go back and reminisce over those cars that we drove as kids, or those cars that we didn't drive as kids because we weren't old enough to drive at that point in time, whatever the case may be, we all appreciate the workmanship in building those cars, the love that goes into preserving those cars, and just appreciate the automotive industry. And the automotive industry is a major player in our economy here in the state of Michigan. It's what built the state of Michigan.
Mike Sukent is with us on the Megacast. He's the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association. You can find more information on their organization and other events that they are helping and participating in this year at michiganfun.com. And Mike, as these events are being planned going forward, and more municipalities and local areas and organizations pop up and want to have a big coming out party after getting back out on the other side of the pandemic, how can their participation in an organization like yours benefit putting their best foot forward and holding those events to not only make them profitable if they're trying to make a profit off of them or if they're trying to raise money for a good cause, but also to make them fun and memorable for people that are committing to these events as post-pandemic memories.
Well, Tyler, what we do here at Michigan Festivals event is we help support the organizers of those events. We offer education, training, how to manipulate through various, what you need to do to be able to serve alcoholic beverages, what you need to do to be able to get a raffle license, what you need to do to be able to, especially 2020, the social distancing, the hand washing stations, to be able to make it safe and welcoming to our attendees. I think the carnival, the outdoor amusement industry did a fantastic job of being leaders in the state of Michigan on making sure that the rides were safe, by social distancing, by using every other seat, by washing down and sanitizing those things. And those are all the things that we bring to those festivals and events, in addition to the vendors and regulations that they need to do. And lastly, we're a statewide organization. We have a big footprint, and if you have an event and you want to just advertise it in your small town, by all means, use your local newspaper, use your TV, radio station. But if you're looking for the out-of-town visitor to come in there, we've got a big presence. We're statewide. We've printed 300,000 magazines in the past. We are on, our website is one of the highest rated SEOs for Michigan festivals. So if you're interested in promoting your event and going statewide to get the out-of-towners to come in and spend money in your community, Michigan Festivals Events is a very affordable way of getting there.
We're joined by Mike Sukent, the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association, MichiganFun.com for more information on the organization and its events. So Mike, we want to talk about coming back out into the community and having these events that are providing memories for people, getting people back out interacting with each other, but also are out there for a good cause and for creating a better community. We have the the Motor City Pride Festival and Parade coming up in September. What can people expect at this celebration and this embracement in our community of this community coming up in September, especially after we didn't have this necessarily at this capacity during the pandemic?
Well, I think just as same as any festival and event, the attendance will be record setting. And then when I say record setting, I'm not comparing it to 2020. That bar's too low. I'm talking about 2019 records, and all the events. You're going to see people attending the events. People are, as I said earlier, they're yearning to get outside. They're yearning to be with friends and family. They're yearning to do something other than sit in front of the TV set.
We're joined by Mike Sukent, the president of FUN. He's the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association, joining us today on the Megacast. Mike, another couple of minutes with you today before we'll say goodbye. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know about the way that events are being planned right now as we're continuing through the pandemic, or anything else that would be important for those that are listening and watching today to know?
Tyler, if I were to say anything to the audience, it would be, we have a number of challenges that we're dealing with in 2021. One is we're coming out of COVID, and two, there is a shortage of workers. And the festivals and events industry has seen that. There's been carnivals that have not been able to bring the number of rides that they usually bring because they don't have staff to be able to run them, or they don't have the people to manage their food wagons. Lines are sometimes a little bit long. So, I just ask everybody to be patient. We're able to do these things. It's no different than going to any of the restaurants in town or any of the other shops. We've got a worker shortage, and as the state works through that, be patient and be courteous. We all need a little bit of a friendly. I understand. I'm patient. Let's move forward on it. Doesn't do anybody any good to get upset over having to be in a long line. I'm happy that they're happening. I spent the last 2 weeks touring the state of Michigan, going from festival to festival to festival. And the thing that I'm hearing from everybody is that we're just so glad that they're back. Just so glad that they're back.
We're joined by Mike Sukent, the president and CEO of the Festivals and Michigan Festivals and Events Association. We appreciate having you on, and definitely a good message to cap off today's show with. Be patient, be kind to people, because nothing's more fun than keeping in a good time in any situation for everybody involved. And no better person to deliver that message than the president of Fun, Mike Sukent, the president and CEO of the Michigan Festivals and Events Association. You can find more information on michiganfun.com. Mike, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Tyler. Have a great day.
You as well. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. We encourage you to tune in to replays throughout the day on Civic Center TV, and find us online, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Big thank you to Kurt Metzger, the mayor of Pleasant Ridge, as well as Brian Kelly, the Small Business Association of Michigan president, for joining us today. Chris Gadulka and Kristina Pruccoli from the Sylvan Table restaurant, Bees and a D founder Brian Peterson, as well as Mike Sukent, and a shout out to our entire crew, Calvin, Larry, and everybody involved. That's going to do it for today's Megacast. We'll return tomorrow live at 10 a.m.